My motion graphics.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another My Motion Graphics tutorial. My name is Gustavo Maia and today we're remaking the cubes into letters tutorial. I realized that I had several questions on the comments and most of the questions were pretty much the same. I realized that I honestly didn't explain myself too well on certain points, and I realized that the best answer would be to just remake that. And if you're going to remake that, we need to remake it even better. So we're actually going to improve it, make it look even better. And we're also taking advantage of the tools that I've created in the meanwhile. So I'm not sure if you know about the Illuminati and the Sharpbox. We're going to use them and you can download them for free at mymotiongraphics.tv. I'll leave the links below. And by using those tools, you'll be able to master and to achieve the goals faster than the previous version. So now we have R16, we have the Illuminati, we have the Sharpbox. It just doesn't make sense to keep watching that older tutorial, and it's still very popular today, and I believe that it just doesn't make sense. So here's our cubes into letters tutorial improved version. So here's what we're going to do today. We have slight differences from the previous tutorial. We have some thickness to the text, some thickness to the way the cubes kind of fit the text. We have slightly different colors, obviously. It's kind of hard to nail the exact same colors, although I wasn't looking for that. And all of the rest will remain pretty much the same. So in this first part, we're going to talk about MoGraph and how to build in Cinema 4D this effect. And in the second part, we're going to light our scene. We're going to create the materials, add the reflections. We're going to talk a little bit about the new reflectance channel in Cinema 4D R16. And then on our third part, we're going to make all the color correction and all those small effects and all the post production in After Effects. So it's gonna be a really nice journey. I hope you and I will have lots of fun, and let's jump into it. So let's stop with the chit chat and let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Cinema 4D. I'm using R16 and let's get started with this. So what I need right now is to create a text. So I'm going into our splines menu and look for the text. Under the text, let's go into our object tab and let's change the text. Let's write this. Let's write here whatever we want. I'm going to type word, but you can write whatever you want. And this is the time where you do it. Let's change the alignment to middle and change the font. So I'm gonna stick with the font that I've used before, which is the Futura Standard Extra Bold. And let's go into our front view and make sure that we adjust a little bit the spacing between the letters, so the kerning. And for that, we're gonna hit over here where it says Show 3D GUI, and we're gonna just bring this text, these letters a little bit so that they have kind of equal spacing between them. And this, it's just fine-tuning the text, but it's on the details that we can actually make the difference. So let's uncheck this once again. This looks good. Let's add an extrude like that and bring the text into the extrude. Let's rename this extrude to text. Text. Okay, and we can close this forever and never. And right now, let's go back into our top left view, right? And with our text selected, we want to bring this down to 0 so that we have a flat text. And next we want to create a cloner. So go into MoGraph, cloner. And if you don't have MoGraph, it means that your version, the version of your Cinema 4D doesn't have MoGraph, and you should upgrade it. So go into maxon.net and you can find all the information available there about the different packages, different versions, different whatever. Anyway, let's create a cube. And we're going to bring this volume down to 15 by 15 by 15, so it looks like a cube, but it's just smaller. And we're going to bring this cube inside the cloner. Okay, so I'm going to rename this cloner to big, and I'll explain that in a while. But with that being done, let's close this. And with the big selected, let's go into mode under the object tab, change the mode to object, and the cubes disappear. That's because it's looking for an object, and the object will be our text. So let's just bring the text over here, and we get this kind of nonsense, and that's because we have the distribution set to vertex, and we don't want that. We want surface, and voila, now we have 20 cubes, and we can increase this value over here on our arrows a bunch, like so, maybe more, and this reminds me of Metallica. Anyway, you can go as far as you want, or as far as your computer will let you before it crashes your software. So one thing that you should have in mind. But I'm going to go to maybe around 2000, and for me that's okay. If you get your computer a little bit slow, you might want to decrease this, and maybe right before your render time you might increase that once again, and then hit the render button. Okay, so we're gonna leave it like that. Okay, let's probably save this, save as, and I'm gonna save it cubes, maybe like here, and cubes, whatever. Okay, and pretty good. Now we still have this kind of gray text. If you render this over here, we can still see our gray text visible, and to fix that, we're going into our text and make sure that it's not visible on our editor and it is not visible on our render. So click there until it gets red and you should be fine. Great. Next, what we need next, we need to add a random effector, but before that we should select our cloner, and then we're going to create our effector. So effector, random effector. Great. Now our random effector is actually displacing the cubes under these values and in this axis, and we don't want that. So we're going to zero out everything. And next we're going to increase the Z value, and we're going to increase that a bunch, like so. Maybe this looks pretty okay for now. And next we want to go into our fall off tab. Make sure you still have your random effector selected. Go into fall off and change the shape to sphere, like so. And now we have a sphere, and only what's inside this red sphere will be 100% changed or affected by this random effector, and what's outside the yellow sphere will be 0% affected by the effector, so it won't be affected at all. And in the meantime, from the yellow, let me just maybe bring this a little bit upward so that you can see, between the yellow and the red we have like this gradient where it starts to be more and more affected until it is 100% affected. So that's why we have this kind of line over here. Okay. In any case, let's just select our scale tool with the random effector selected and just scale that a bunch, like really a bunch, maybe like so. Okay, and now we have a lot of displacement. We can change that in a minute. And to just fine tune the size of our random effector, we can click on this little orange dots over here and there. And like so, and like so. And now we can move this to the left and see something going on. And this will be pretty much what we're going to animate, although we're still going to change some stuff in the meanwhile. Okay, first thing we want to change is the fall off. As you can see, this looks pretty awkward, right? And we can change, if you go into random effector, going to fall off, where you'll find fall off function. Let's change that to inverse cubic. And what's happening right now is that now we have kind of a curve, like a soft transformation going on, and that's what we want. Okay, we don't want something really sharp. Maybe okay, maybe this will look a little bit better. And you can change a little bit the size of our fall off. So this is the percentage of the fall off to make this transformation look a little bit longer, or the curve, basically the curve kind of gets wider. And this looks pretty okay in my opinion, like so, and pretty good. Maybe, I don't know, maybe increase that a little bit. There's no right or wrong, there's just what you think and feel that kind of works. Okay, pretty good. Now we're also going to change some stuff under parameter that we didn't yet, and that is we're going to increase a little bit the X and a little bit the distortion on the Y as well, so that we have a little bit more movement going on. Okay, and if you see this from your right view, you can actually see that we have some cubes going upwards like so, a little bit, maybe like that. And if you see on your front view, on the Y, will kind of make the difference on this axis. Okay, pretty good. Now what we're going to do is, before we animate, we're going to animate. That's it. So let's just increase our length, the length of our timeline to 180. And let's just click and drag on this arrow over here so that it kind of fits the entire timeline. We're gonna animate this random. So make sure to deactivate all of these settings over here and just leave the position on. This means that we will only record position keyframes to our object, which is a random effector that has to be selected. Make sure you have your first frame selected, that is our frame 0, and hit record. And now let's go into the end of our animation and just bring this into the right until it's fully transformed like that. And hit record once again. Do not forget this. Okay, now we can play. And this might look a little bit slow, but we can actually make a quick preview so that we can see exactly what's happening. This is not a real time. It usually never is. In any way, let's open our render settings and let's just fine tune or tune some stuff real quick. So we want our width to be 1280 and the height to be 720. We want to lock the ratio, okay? Lock the ratio, that's important. And our frame rate will be 29.97. We want the frame range to be all frames. We don't want to render one frame, we want to render them all. Next, we want to go into anti-aliasing and we want to increase that to best and to filter to animation. Okay, great. And one thing we want to do next is go into options and reduce the reflection depth. That's going to be useful later on when we have reflections, and it will decrease our render time significantly. So that's pretty helpful. Okay, now we can going to save. Yeah, you should go into save. Make sure you set the path where you want to save it, although we're not going to save it right away, but in any case you should, or you can immediately create your path. I think I'm going to do it right now. So let's go into cubes. Let's create a folder called, I usually create a folder called render 3D, and I'm gonna give it a name, so I'm gonna call these cubes, like so. And one small step that's really important is this alpha channel. So let's make sure this is on, okay? And we're pretty much done. Oh no, I forgot. We want to change this TIFF to PNGs. And we want the depth to be 16-bit. And this 16-bit will basically mean we're gonna have more depth of color, and that's pretty useful. The PNG, you might select whatever you want. I usually go to PNG or sometimes TIFFs or sometimes OpenEXR. It really depends on what you're doing, but PNG is for me usually the best solution. It makes small files and they look good, so that's okay. Now, another question that I get pretty often, one is why is the alpha channel not working? And that's because you forgot to check this. And another is why do you render single frames instead of a video file? I think that for me it's more practical to make that for many reasons. I don't know, you should just use PNG or maybe another file, but you should use sequence files, sequence footage, so sequence pictures. That will help you a lot in many cases. I might make a tutorial just because of that, because it is a little bit extensive, the explanation, but who knows, I might do that. In any case, just make sure you have PNG there and you'll do fine. Okay, so now I don't want to save this. I want to make a render, but I don't want to save this. I just want to see if this is looking good. So I'm going to uncheck that, and under the output, I'm going to reduce the size of our scene because it will just make our render a little bit faster. So I'm going to divide this by 2. And because I have the lock ratios set to on, as soon as I hit enter or I click away, it will do this his maths and will calculate the height like so. Like just press enter and there you go. We have half of the width and we have the proportional height to it. So it will still keep the proportions that we want. It will just look smaller. Make sure that we have all frames, all is set up, and now we're gonna click over here and over here. Click yes. I don't want to save it, no problem. And we're just gonna analyze the speed of our animation. As you can see, we have really quick renders, and that's because we don't have any shading, any reflections, lights, shadows. We have none of them, and that's one of the advantages of making your animation prior to actually give it a good looking shading and lighting and all that stuff. Of course, there are ways that you can use to make your renders real quick, just to see how it looks in terms of animation, even after you've created materials and textures and all that stuff, but it's just more work and I'm not interested in. Okay, pretty good. I think it looks great. Our animation is done, and I think we are going to go into, before we actually go into our second part, let's just do something else. Let's bring a little bit more interest into our scene. So let's come over here into the random effector, and add rotation. And this will add, as you might see, let me just zoom in a bit. This, let me just bring down to 0 so that you can see better. So this will increase or add some rotation to the cubes. And I'm just tweaking this up randomly, not too much, maybe around 300, 400, 500, something like that. And this will add some rotation to our cubes that will actually, they will actually end up by rotating until they're flat once again. And this will add us a little bit more interest to our scene. Great. Next, what we want to do next, we want to do something else, which is to create another random effector. So make sure you have your big selected. Go into MoGraph, effector, random effector. And let's bring down the X, Y, and Z once again to 0. And what we're going to do right now is just to increase the Z. And as you can see, we kind of have this volume shape. Let me just click over. Okay. Kind of have this volume. And we get this randomness, these random cubes, this kind of cubic texture. And that looks good. And when we add our shading, it will look really better. I just made a copy out of this random effector accidentally, so let me just undo that and it's done. Okay. So, okay. Another thing that we're gonna do right now, and this is our final step on this part of this tutorial, is to select the big and all the random effectors. Select them all, press Alt G, or you can right click and I think you have group somewhere, group objects. There you go. And we're gonna call this big. Okay. Now we're gonna bring this over here and we're gonna duplicate this. So Control, click and drag. And you're gonna duplicate this and we're gonna call this small. Okay, we're gonna open up this and make sure we rename this to small once again. And over here on our cube, we're gonna make its size smaller. So maybe, I don't know, 8 by 8 by 8. And we can see the difference. And that's because we have small cubes inside the big cubes. And what we need to do is we need to make a small variation to our randomness. And there are several ways to do it. One quick way is you can go into your cloner, go into object and just change the seed. And right now we have a different seed. So we have the cubes not standing exactly where the big cubes are. So that's what we want. Pretty cool. And we can right now, I can see that this is way too long. And I should have this as adjusted before, but we can do it right now. So let's go into our big, the random effect that we created before, the first one. So let's maybe rename this to random 1 and this to random 2. And the random 1 is the random that's moving. The 2 is just the one that kind of gives it that shading in the end, right? So let's go into our 1 and let's decrease this a bit so that it doesn't go that far. Maybe like so. And let's do the same thing with the small. So let's bring this down. Maybe like so. Okay. And let's save the file. Very useful. Do not forget to save your file. Pretty important. Okay, I'm just tweaking the values until I think it fits. And under the small, I can actually increase a little bit the Y so that we have some kind of particles flowing around. That looks nice. And let me just see. Parameter, this is all done. And we can just quick scrub our timeline. So to really see that our animation is okay. And right before I actually finish this part, let's just make a quick render out of this and just to see where we're at and to kind of understand where we're going next. I'm gonna skip this forward so you don't have to wait. Okay, so now we have our render, our preview, and it's pretty quick. It was pretty quick to render. And everything looks pretty okay. Great, now let's go into our second part where we'll animate the camera, we'll create some lighting, and we'll create the materials. Actually only one material, but we're gonna create that material. We're gonna add some reflections and we're gonna make this look pretty cool. So I hope you watch that part, don't miss it. I'll see you in a minute.